All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for being here today and welcome to Industry Insights. This is kind of a newer series of employer panels that we've hosted this academic year. So we're very appreciative that you're here to support the Pomerantz Career Center by engaging with us in this program. So my name is Abby Case. I am a career coach at the Pomerantz Career Center, and I also work with our employer outreach team. I will have the panelists go around and introduce themselves here in a second, but first just want to give kind of some webinar logistics. So as I mentioned, we are recording this session. If you have to leave early, you can't attend the whole thing, or you want to let other people know that this is out there, we will have the recording available to our website soon. We do ask that you save questions till the end. We have some set questions that we'll ask throughout, and then we'll save time for Q&A at the very end. So if you do have questions for the panelists, feel free to save those. You can put them in the chat, but we won't address them until the very end. And then just to note with typical Zoom etiquette, if you just keep yourself muted unless you're speaking. With that all said, I'm going to go around and again, like I said, we'll get started here. But wonderful panelists, if you wouldn't mind, just real quick before I dive into the actual questions, letting us know who you are, where you're coming from, so what organization you're representing, and then what your job is there. So if we could start with Alissa first.
Hi, my name is Alissa Schuerer. I am a detective sergeant with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, which is located in Iowa City. My role as a detective is investigating general crimes.
Thank you. And then Dan, then Lareesa.
Dan Roupe with the Des Moines Police Department. I'm the recruiting coordinator. I've been on the department about 8 years, mostly working on patrol, and came out to the academy to start working recruiting events.
Hi, my name is Lareesa Hawkins. I'm a probation parole officer with the 5th District Department of Corrections, which is located in Des Moines, Iowa. I've been doing this for about 5 years now. And I've also started the committee to start doing some career planning for students like you.
Awesome. Thank you all. So the first question is, what did you study in college and how has that influenced your professional journey? Again, we can start in that same order. So Alissa, Dan, then Lareesa.
Okay, so most of my college experience is
Sorry, Alissa first. Sorry,
Oh,
Dan.
sorry, I'm sorry. I thought you said Dan.
So I attended the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls and got a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminology. When I started the process, my goal or end goal was to be in juvenile justice. That was what I had my sights set on. So when I attended the university in Northern Iowa, I got just a great snapshot of all sorts of different fields within criminal justice and public service, corrections, that law enforcement, public safety aspect, and juvenile detention. So I thought that served me well because it then kind of changed my direction of where I was going.
Okay. All right. So most of my experience, my college experience is Community College of the Air Force in human resources. Started out in logistics and then worked into human resources and then recruiting and retention, ultimately retiring from the Air Force and going into law enforcement.
I went to the University of Northern Iowa as well. I studied criminology, so I got my bachelor's in criminology. While at UNI, I did an internship with the 1st District Department of Correctional Services and worked with probation officers in the residential facility there. So I kind of didn't really know what I was going to do until I did that internship and have been doing it since then.
Yes, as someone who's representing the Career Center, I will say the value of internships. We very much appreciate that. So definitely understand that. Okay, so what are some of the most significant trends currently shaping your industry? And can you share an example of how you or your organization is adapting to meet those new challenges? This time we can start with Dan.
Okay, so I think the trends are changing a little bit over the last few years. I think every department, or anything in law enforcement is, struggled finding applicants or people that were qualified or people that wanted to do the job. I see that shifting a little bit now. We tend to be getting a lot more applicants, and I think part of that is the culture is changing just a little bit, and I think people are a little more interested in serving their communities and, in a certain way. So we're really doing a lot by reaching out, with social media and also within our own department. We have a lot of folks that have a lot of connections around the country because they come from all over the place. So we use those folks to kind of get the word out.
We'll go to Lareesa and then Alissa.
So some of the current trends that we're really seeing right now is mental health. A lot of mental health is what we're seeing, and just kind of providing ways to help people with mental health problems, especially with co-occurring disorders where you have mental health and substance abuse. So just try to help people with those. A lot of people with mental health typically use substances to counteract the mental health. So um, and some of the things that we're just kind of doing is just trying to get them to see a therapist, trying to get them to go seek mental health treatment, kind of those things. As far as hiring trends, we're really just looking for people who kind of know the work a little bit and also go to those internships, job seek, job shadow, just seeing it's very different from going to school and reading about it on a book rather than seeing behavior in action as you're working at it. So a lot of the trends we really like to see are people who kind of start doing those job seeking just to see what they're getting themselves into before actually doing the job.
The trends that we're seeing as far as in the criminal investigations world is kind of two-sided, and I would just say technology. One side, as in the investigation world, is technology is ever changing, and I grew up where at one time I didn't have a cell phone. I know some of you may not have ever experienced that, but kind of learning new technology and seeing as crimes are committed and a way to use that toward advantage in the public safety world to help us solve crimes, to help us, and it harms us too, right? Because people use that for scams. And so just learning the technology and keeping up with it. And as AI kind of hits this new point in the unknown of what it's going to look like, technology is always kind of working against us. But it can also be working for us. Like Dan mentioned, social media and online presence is great for getting the word out to the community, disseminating in the case of an emergency or just disseminating information to the public. So technology can be a benefit. The other thing is in like body worn cameras, technology is a great thing. It shows transparency, it shows a decrease in use of force complaints. So technology is always going to be an issue, two-sided. So that's, I think, the thing that I deal with most in criminal investigations.
All right, thank you all. So the next question is, what are some key skills, qualities, or experiences you believe helped you progress in your career? This time we are actually going to start with Lareesa.
Yeah, so obviously some key skills, qualities, experiences, do your job shadows, do your internships. Those will definitely let you know whether or not you want to be into that job or not. I would also say don't take things so personally when it comes to interacting with justice involved individuals. They're going to be on the worst day of their lives talking to you. So just make sure you don't take it personally and think that they're trying to get after you or trying to upset you or anything like that. It's just they're going through it. And I would just also just say patience. Patience is kind of a virtue and something a lot of people don't really have these days. So practice your patience and practice your self-reflection.
The one thing that kind of always comes to my mind when talking to people who maybe want to get into this field, or what's the one thing that kind of sticks out, or the one thing even that I use the most, would be critical thinking. I can't stress that enough. In law enforcement, there's a lot of high stress situations that we deal with, and that critical thinking in a person is key. Like Lareesa mentioned, when you're in school, you're in a classroom, you're reading a book, there's not a lot of evolving situations where you need to think on your feet and get to that conclusion right away, but thinking outside of the box and how ways to solve problems. And like Lareesa said, we meet people on the worst day of their lives, and no call, no case is ever the same, ever. There's always something different in each encounter and each individual that we deal with because they are individuals and they're all dealing with different crises or situations, victims or witnesses alike. So knowing how to adapt to that and how to best serve those victims, witnesses, and suspects, critical thinking is key.
I think I'll echo what these guys are saying. It's kind of hard to follow some of that up, other than the fact that your personal skills, your speaking skills and being able to talk to people. I think a lot of people don't really understand that 99% of what you do in law enforcement or out in the street is talking to people, communicating with them, and getting them to either comply or to do whatever it is that you need them to do to resolve the situation for that particular, time. So the communication thing is a big part of that. And I think sometimes it gets lost because a lot of people are, they're really stuck on this right here in their own little world. So you really have to, as far as adapting to that and developing your skills of going out and just putting the thing down and talking to people, and trying to solve problems that way rather than texting problems back and forth. You need to have that face-to-face, communication. I think as far as what we're looking for in experiences is world experience. For us, we like to have folks that come in that are from all different areas and have done all different kinds of things in their lives, that makes them who they are, because they can really, when they get out there on the street, they can relate to people rather than maybe somebody that was in clothes and all they've done is just a little bit of, they went through their education, they went to high school and education, and then, that's it. So get out there and try different things while you're in school, getting different programs and travel and do all kinds of things so you can experience all these different people. So.
Yeah, very well said. I really appreciate that. Again, I will always appreciate a plug for getting involved, doing the things while you're in school. So definitely appreciate that. And honestly, all of your points about communication, very, very apt. So the next question is, what networking strategies would you suggest for students aiming to build meaningful connections in your field? Now, I know you don't all represent the exact same field, and I know we're talking kind of generally about law and public service, but feel free to kind of tailor to the particular areas that you all are in. This time we can start with Alissa.
So as far as strategies for students, I think there's no need to wait to start doing these networking strategies, even as students, if you don't have a desired field you want to go into. I think we can probably all say that people in this field are typically helpers, right? They just want to help or make things better. And I think there's a lot of ways to get involved in your own community to be a helper, whether that be volunteering or just a part-time gig somewhere. I think as a student, there's a lot of opportunities to do so. And whatever your passion is, let's say it's kids, adults, nursing or geriatric type people, or transient population, there's always a nonprofit in your area that you can kind of get involved with and decide if that's for you, right? And getting involved in those organizations, then you network with those people, because working in law enforcement, we deal with a lot of different nonprofits and organizations that serve people. And those have been my best connections that I have with people. If I have an individual struggling with a certain addiction, maybe I can then reach out to someone who would be able to serve them. So those connections that have not only made my job easier, but help those people we serve. So just networking also within your organization. So I know that investigators in my surrounding communities, sharing that intelligence is great. And so getting to know them and using them as a resource is a great way to network as well.
Dan, then Lareesa.
Yeah, I would say I'll echo that. Also, a lot of these departments have citizens academies. That's a good way to get in there and understand the job. But also in the Citizens Academy, you have multiple officers, detectives, people that work within the department that come in and talk to you, and that's a good way to get to know those folks, especially if it's a department you're specifically interested in. Get to know those folks and build friendships and connections with them, because when it comes time to hire, you might be able to use them as a reference, and it's going to help you out a little bit.
I will also piggyback on the both of them, making sure that you're, talking to anybody whose field that you think you're wanting to go in. So like I work with a lot of local law enforcement. I talk to a lot of local law enforcement. I primarily work in Guthrie County Sheriff's Office, so I talk to them constantly. Another networking strategy that I also suggest is we as correction officers have a conference in the spring and the fall that students are welcome to come to. You do have to pay for it, of course, but it's the Iowa Correctional Association. So if you did want to learn more and network, that's where all the probation officers are going to be. That's where all their supervisors are going to be. And a lot of keynote speakers who work in local law enforcement and just other regions that would relate to the corrections world. So just kind of research where you can go and what you can find out.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's a super helpful event going on that would be helpful for students to know about. So thanks for plugging that. Okay. The next question is, how can students and new graduates stand out in a competitive job market, especially as entry-level employees? This time we can start with Dan.
Okay. So here's my advice is present yourself well. You have to work on your skills at presenting yourself, selling yourself, and not just verbally, but also, physically. You have to look good. When you show up for an interview or anything within a hiring process, there's a lot of different times where you have appointments at the department. It may be an interview, or maybe a physical, or it may be, taking the psychological exam or whatever it is. You need to show up and look the part. Don't show up in shorts and a t-shirt or something like that, because it happens. And it doesn't look good for you. So when it comes down to it, and they're trying to decide who are we going to hire, are we going to hire the person that showed up in shorts? Or are we going to hire the person that showed up in a suit or business casual, or something like that? So presenting yourself both, physically and verbally, having good interview skills. When you show up to an interview, make sure that you're prepared. You may not know what questions you're going to get, but prepare yourself enough where at least you can, work your way through those questions, the best that you can.
Okay, then Alissa, then Lareesa.
As part of my job, I do background investigations for new hires for deputies at the sheriff's office. And I think the one thing that stands out to me is integrity. That is really important. Like Dan mentioned, being prepared when you show up for an interview, and knowing what you're getting into, and playing the part, looking the part. But for me, sometimes I can bomb an interview. It just happens. You get nervous and you don't even know what they just asked, and you feel like you lost it, right? But that's not what we're basing, your application, your possibility to be a deputy on. There's a lot more than that one interview that we're going to look into. So that integrity comes into the fact when we call your employers, when we talk to your neighbors, when we call your family and friends, when we look at a criminal history, or maybe call your local police department, the city that you lived in, to see if you've had any run-ins, just to kind of see what's been going on in your life in the years leading up to your application. So I know when we're teenagers or even in college, sometimes we make stupid mistakes, right? But if you're going to be in law enforcement or public service, you have to know that that's going to be scrutinized. So applying in this field, honesty is great. If you come in and tell us that you've never had a traffic citation, and then we've looked up and seen you've had 10 of them, that's going to be a problem, because your integrity in law enforcement and integrity representing the badge is number one priority in law enforcement. So just to, from here on out, just protect your integrity, and honesty is important.
I would also just kind of say, like, go to your career fairs in college, go to your career fairs, because honestly, there's been a lot of times where I've been in career fairs and people are too scared to come up and talk to me about why they want to do this job. And part of it is kind of building up that courage and going to talk to people, and networking, like we've been saying. So go to your career fairs, go to your job fairs, whatever you need to do, but talk to the people, because we're writing down your names. Trust me when I say we're writing down your names when you do come and talk to us, and making sure that if the conversation's good, you'll probably get the job.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to plug it too. Yes, definitely go to the career fairs. They're a great place to be meeting and meeting recruiters and networking, connecting, getting out there. So definitely appreciate that. So the last prepared question that I have for you is, what advice would you give to students who are unsure about their specific career path within this industry? And we can start actually again with Lareesa and then Dan, then Alissa.
Like I said, go to your career fairs. That's the best advice I can give to you. Career fairs, job fairs, going to your internships, just branching out and doing anything in this career field. When I started, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to work with juveniles, and then I went into the adult probation world and kind of just fell into it really hard. And it's been one of the best experiences that I've had as far as a career goes, and my only one, but that's why I'm still here. So I would just say, just branch out, do your networking, go to these career fairs, job fairs, do the internships, do job shadowing. Even if you're not sure, just get out there.
I would echo all that. That's kind of what I was going to say. But I think, you know, checking out, some of the departments will have open houses and things like that. You can connect with those types of folks, the ride-alongs. That's what's going to help you out a little bit. If you're looking for law enforcement specifically, police versus sheriff's department versus, DCI or state troopers or whatever, we all do law enforcement, right? But the job is a little bit different depending on where you're at, as far as the workload and how everything operates and things like that. So check those things out. You may be interested in a small town or a small, uh, a a small sheriff's department or something like that, or look at something big like Des Moines or the state troopers or, something like that. So it's a little bit different, but you really kind of got to spread your wings out a little bit and really do the research and call around and talk to people. Back in the old days, it was hard to call sometimes a police department and ask somebody a bunch of questions because they didn't really want to answer. They're like, hey, if you want to apply, just apply, right? Now we have people that do that job. For instance, that's what I do. I answer the people's phone calls and give them advice. And, if it's something that may not work out for them here, I tell them, hey, maybe you should try this other place or do something like that. So, spread your wings and look around and be open to whatever.
I kind of echo the same thing Dan said about the cool thing about law enforcement is most departments offer ride-alongs. So it's in a very, very low committal situation. You can call up most law enforcement agencies and say, I want to do a ride-along, and say, I'm available Friday for 3 hours, or I want to do a night shift on the weekend. It's kind of whatever you want to put into it, and you can see what it's actually like from the passenger seat. I think that is such a cool opportunity. I remember taking that opportunity in high school, and it probably led me to where I am today because I was able to see what it's really like, not just on paper, not just from a book, not from a classroom, sitting in the passenger seat. So I think that opportunity is there and one that you should take. And like Dan said, maybe a city police department isn't for you. Or maybe you want a smaller rural agency. Just kind of try them all, like different flavors of ice cream, right? Because you can do that. The other thing I would recommend is, again, touching on that volunteer aspect. In college, I thought I wanted to do juveniles, and I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And so that's a way, just a couple hours a week, to get involved with the community and see if maybe that's for you. And if you decide it's not, you haven't invested in a job. So get out there and do the scary stuff. And like Dan said, at most agencies, there's someone you can call and maybe a recruiter and ask questions, because we want people that want to come into this field and we want people to be successful. So even though it would be scary to make that phone call, call and talk to someone.
Thank you so much, everyone. So that again, as I mentioned, that was the end of the prepared questions that I had. Alissa, Lareesa, Dan, you all have been great. Thank you so much for your industry insights and for responding to these questions.